Hello and
Hello.
welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle and triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman named Jennifer Ramirez. Jennifer is an entrepreneur, author, speaker, and coach. She is the founder of And Rise, a nonprofit organization that empowers women to be the ultimate versions of themselves no matter what adversities they face, and offers women in her community free counseling, free support groups, coaching, women's empowerment events, safe spaces to heal, and so much more. Jennifer is here to share a story of what abuse, sexual coercion, and ultimately finding her freedom and her voice looks like. Like so many, she was naive to what a toxic relationship was. I am excited to have her break some of these concepts down for females that are enduring relationships like this right now. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. When we first started talking, we talked about toxic friendships. Do you mind expanding a little bit on those toxic relationships?
Sure. Yeah. So I went through a lot of like domestic abuse. So a lot of emotional abuse and narcissistic abuse, as well as physical abuse. And I like to talk about this because I think it's really important for not just women, but for anyone to understand what that looks like. Because I think people think, oh, abuse is just a black eye, or, he has to hit her. And that's not true. Emotional abuse is a very real thing, and it is extremely detrimental to your emotional and mental health. Like you know, a punch in the face, yeah, I know it's not good, but like it heals up. But those words, those stick with you for a very long time. I mean, think about childhood and somebody said something mean to you and you're an adult now, and you still think about that mean thing because
Yeah,
it pierces you. So
yeah.
imagine somebody that you love and that you confide in, you trust them, and they're telling you all these horrible things about yourself. So the last abusive relationship that I was in, um, he was very, very controlling, very manipulative. So he was controlling to the point where I had no friends. He isolated me. He made sure that I was away from everyone. And that's partly what abusers do, is they make sure that you're away from your support system so that nobody could say, hey, that doesn't sound right, or he doesn't sound like that great of a guy. They want you to stay away from everybody so that they can continue to control and manipulate you. So that was something that I started to miss my friends. And I remember even wanting to hang out with my sisters a couple of times, and he would like make sure that I was miserable before I left. He would always pick a fight before I was going to go somewhere, every time. It was even like the days leading up to it. He knew it was coming, and he would still try to fight with me days in advance. And at first, I would fall into that, and I would get so upset that I'd be like, forget it, I'm just not going to go. But then as time went on, I started realizing what he was doing, and I was like, I'm going to go. He's going to be pissed off and fight with me no matter what anyway. So I might as well go have fun for a few hours. And of course, that really upset him. But like another thing too was that he used to like play the cat and mouse game in the house with me. So like if we were fighting, he wouldn't let me leave the house, which is actually a form of like emotional abuse, but it's also physical because they physically will not let you leave. So I actually just learned that not too long ago, that it's physical because they're physically blocking you from being able to go to safety, or physically blocking you from going wherever you need to go. So that was a big thing that I didn't really realize at the time, that was like emotional abuse. And also punching holes in the walls. He's not punching you in your face, but it's right next to you. So eventually it will turn into that, where it is your face, and I started realizing like the fights were just getting worse and worse as time went on. and it was just very, very hard on me. And then he was also financially abusive. When we first got together, we had a plan that, I was going to pay these bills, he was going to pay these. And then as time went on, he decided that he'd rather spend his money on drugs than, contribute to the household. And then it wasn't until I got a letter from an attorney saying that I could lose my condo because the assessments hadn't been paid in 6 months. And he didn't even bother to let me know, by the way, I don't have money to pay the assessments. So that happened, and I was obviously very upset. And I think that was the moment where I think I started losing respect for him as a man, because I was like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be this big, amazing man, but you can't even pay, you can't even. And it got to the point where he was spending all of his money on drugs, so he couldn't even pay for groceries anymore. He told me, he's like, I don't even have money for groceries anymore. Sorry. And I was like, so I'm just taking care of a grown man now? Like, I'm like, I never signed up for this. I'm not your sugar mama. Like, what do you think this is? And all the excuses in the world. But that's the thing. He always thought he was too good to have certain jobs. Like, he only wanted like high level jobs. And I was like, my dad always taught me, like, a man does whatever he has to do to take care of his family. I don't care if he has to wake up and deliver newspapers in the morning, or to be a delivery driver, deliver pizzas. You do what you got to do to make ends meet for your family. And he just felt too proud to deliver pizzas or to do any of that. And I was just like, ew, like, who are you? And so there's just a lot of things that he did. And then it just got very, like I said, abusive at the end. And he even made a scene one day in front of one of my friends. And that was kind of like my light bulb moment when he did that. He made a scene. He followed me to her house. He was cursing me out, calling me bitches and all types of things out of my name, which he normally didn't do. But he was a narcissist too. So she saw that side, and narcissists only do it in behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But he accidentally let her see that side of him. And he was like, she told him too. She's like, what is wrong with you? Do you hear how you're speaking to her? And then it was like, bam, he snapped out of it. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I'll never disrespect your house again. And then he comes and gives me a kiss on the cheek. I'll see you at home. Love you. Bye. And I was just like, what just happened? And then when I get home, he's like, has his hands on his hips, and he like looks at me and he's like, what do you have to say for yourself, after getting into this really bad fight? And that was kind of when the light bulb went off for me. And I was like, this man does not respect you. He doesn't care about you. What are you going to do? So I made him go to his parents' house that night. And every night that passed, like, I didn't want to be with him anymore. I just knew this was it. Like, I thought I just needed a break, or, a day or two away from him. But every day that passed, I felt such peace in my home that I hadn't felt in a long time. And like, I didn't have to walk on eggshells anymore. And then eventually I broke it off. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So, and that's just one of the unhealthy relationships but that was the more like recent one. But I have stories for days about all the things that I've been through with people.
So when did you finally come to the realization of, I was actually abused? When did that?
I actually didn't know till I started And Rise, believe it or not, when I started learning about emotional abuse. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know. I just thought he was crazy and it was just a bad relationship and it ended. But I didn't know until I started learning about all this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I had been abused by not just him, but all these other people too. I didn't know. That's why I talk about emotional abuse, because I didn't even know that I was in it. I had no idea.
Yes, 100%. I want you to expand a little bit more on isolation, because when women hear that, they think to themselves, he would say, like, you're not allowed to hang out with anybody, but that's not how they do it.
Right.
And you kind of touched on it a little bit. You're like, he would argue with me.
Yeah.
Do you have any more?
Yeah. So some people will straight out say, I don't want you to hang out with whoever. And I've had a lot of boyfriends in the past where I was not allowed to have male friends because they were insecure and they couldn't handle it. And in my opinion, if you are adults, like, I think you're okay to have, like, my current fiance, his best friend is a woman. I think it's fine, whatever. I trust him, and that's the thing. You have to be in a relationship where you trust each other. But anyway, so no, I think most people don't say you're not allowed to hang out with them. I think what they do is they're like, let's hang out, let's hang out, let's hang out, or I'll come over tonight. And they want to take up all your time. And even when you mention, I might go out with someone else, like a friend, I might go out to dinner with my friend tonight. Oh, but don't you want to see me? And, just those little mind games where then they make you feel guilty to go out and do something, or they pick a fight, like I say before, so that you can be like, oh, I'm in such a bad mood now, forget it, I'm not going. Or they'll annoy you so much when you're out. Like my exes used to text me, where are you at? Who are you with? What time are you coming home? How much longer? How much longer? And then it just was like, I'm just going to go home because I can't deal with the text anymore. Like, I just want him to shut up. So I'm just going to, and that's part of their manipulation tactics, so it's not always that they're going to say, I'm going to isolate you today. You're going to stay home with me. It's these mind games, that they play, and the guilt trips more than anything, the guilt, them making you feel bad for wanting to go hang out with your friends. And it's really important for people to understand that in a healthy relationship, you're allowed to have friends. You're allowed to have a life outside of that person. You need to. It's healthy to have something separate outside of your relationship, So I think people need to know that it's really, really important.
Definitely. And I want to just have a little notation there, because a lot of times when we first start dating someone, it is easy to be like, I want to be with them all the time.
Yeah.
And view that as like, oh, it's so cute. And yes.
Yeah.
And it's important just to have a conversation. So if you are noticing some of the things that Jennifer's talking about, which I can relate to 100%, to have a conversation and just say, hey, I appreciate the fact that you want to hang out so much. I love that. However, it's really important for me to have at least 3 days a month or whatever it is, every other weekend with my girlfriends or with my friends. And then watch how they react to that one conversation, and then watch how they allow you to do that going forward.
Allow you.
Yeah. So once they set a boundary, once you set a boundary, you should respect that boundary. And if they're not respecting that boundary or allowing you to do that, then that's when some red flags should really start to.
Absolutely. And their response will be extremely telling, because there was some people that can't hide their crazy. So they'll say, oh no, I don't let my girl do this, or oh no, you're not allowed to do that. And that'll just tell you everything right there. But some people are really good manipulators. So they'll be, oh yeah, sure, that's totally fine. Yeah, you want to go out with your friends 3 times a month? Sure. But then when it comes down to it, then it'll be a different story. But also, eye contact, pay attention to body language, because when people don't like something or they're uncomfortable, they start to move or twitch or itch or, stuff like that. So that's also things to really pay attention to.
Definitely. And then can you expand a little bit more on this cat and mouse thing? Because I've never even heard of that.
Yes. So when fights would get really scary, and that's also part of like the emotional abuse, is when they try to scare or intimidate you, which is what he was trying to do. He would tell me, like, he would say, like, get in my face, like literally, like you can't see, but like right here. So to me, I'm from Chicago. You're getting my face. We're gonna fight. Like those are fight. Like I don't play that, and it's a trigger to this day. So because of all that, I have triggers with screaming. So if somebody's screaming at me, the Dukes are up. We're gonna fight. Like I'm just take it that way, and I just go into defense mode, right? But anyway, so the cat and mouse. So like, when the fights would get really bad, I would try to leave because I would get scared. So like I would go, let's say I would try to run to the bathroom, and then he would like pound on the door. If you don't open this door right now, I'm gonna break the door down, or whatever, things like that. And then I would like try to escape a few times and like try to run out the front door, and then he would block the front door, wouldn't let me leave. So then I'd try to go to the back door to run out the back, block it, not let me leave. So that's what I mean by cat and mouse, not allowing you to leave your own home or leave a room, and saying, no, you got to talk to me until we figure this out, or you talk to me till I'm done talking to you. And it's an intimidation tactic. And until you, like, I think he was just waiting for me to give up, which I would eventually after hours of fighting, because he was crazy. He would fight with me for hours and hours on end, until I finally was like, white flag, fine. I was like, you win, I lose, whatever, you're right, I'm wrong, I'm just done. I like physically and mentally and emotionally couldn't take it anymore. So I'm like, fine, just have your way. And that was how he won not won a lot of fights, but got his way a lot, because I would just give up, because it would just be too much, to take on and continue to fight for hours and hours. It was a lot.
Definitely. I remember specifically a handful of times where I would pull out my suitcase and start putting my clothes in my suitcase. And as I was going into my drawer and putting clothes in the suitcase, he would be taking the piles out of the suitcase and putting them back in the drawers. So it was like this never ending cycle. And I like, couldn't even like get enough even just to like get out for like a week or something. Like
Yeah.
I would actually have to leave with nothing basically. Which you can't do that if you have a kid. So, you know, I always tried to make sure that when I would make sure that our fights wouldn't escalate because we actually have control over that too.
Mhm.
If my son was in town, like with
Mhm.
me, but when
Yeah.
he was with his father and I would try to like set boundaries or try to like hold my ground, the fight, like you said, the fights would just go on for hours and hours
Mhm.
and hours and hours. Um, yeah, absolutely insane.